Okay, this is gonna be a great lesson in labor exploitation. So I own a small business, but we all earn the same take-home pay rate per day, which is $250. Full-time workers work 4 days a week at my place. Part-time workers work 2 days per week at my place. For full-time workers, this amounts to an annual salary of $70,200 per year, which I know sounds very fancy, but it only makes us lower middle class in Los Angeles where we are. Still feels pretty rich to us though, because most of us are used to being poor. I have 7 full-time employees and 3 part-time employees, and my total annual payroll expenses for everyone, including myself, almost $600,000 per year. Now again, remember, this is total payroll expenses, but I only earn that $70,200 like everybody else. Let's imagine though that I instead paid all of them minimum wage, and I just kept the rest. Minimum wage for my company in LA is $14.25 per hour because we have less than 25 employees, which at our spiffy 4-day work week amounts to $23,000 per year for a full-time worker and a little under 12 for a part-time worker. Here would be my total employee payroll at minimum wage, and this would be my pay. This is what most bosses are.
Well, some small business owners claim that they can't afford to pay their staff. A lot of larger business owners hoard their income. Madeline Pendleton stands alone in her transparency about her income and how it's distributed among her workers while explaining wage theft in that TikTok that you just saw. Now, she has a socialist model of organizing her workplace, similar to a workers' cooperative, although it's not worker owned exactly, but business decisions are made democratically among all of the workers. Here's just one example of how she and her workers apply pay raises.
So I run a business on a socialist platform, and everybody at the business earns the same take-home pay per day, from me, the owner, down to like an intern. And when business is good and steady, we have a raise system implemented into our wages, which is 1% per quarter, ideally to match inflation. However, last year when people started talking about a recession coming, we all decided to put our raises on pause. We do a kind of democratic voting on everything, and we also voted to pause some benefits. The benefits we decided to pause were paid for lunches, out-of-pocket reimbursement for mental health care because our health insurance, which is fully paid by the company, has accessible healthcare within it already. In 2024, we'll take a look at our financial situation and we will vote on if we want to reinstitute the quarterly raises, but it depends on our revenue. The biggest thing about running the business this way, which is that we all have equal access, not only to wages, but also to profit. If there is profit, we aim to break even at the end of the year, but sometimes in really good years, there's profit and we do profit sharing, is that everybody's incentivized to prioritize the health of the business first and foremost. So when we vote on things like whether or not to do quarterly raises, we take into account all of the facts and figures about sales and numbers. We use that info to make the best decision possible about what will be good for the business and sustainable, and also good for everybody who works there.
Now, so if you're wondering, she runs a retail shop in LA called Tunnel Vision. We have their website here. There's currently a 30% off sale if you're interested in checking it out. But she does a good job, especially on TikTok, explaining how big company CEOs earn most of their profits from their workers while they are paid a surplus labor value. Meanwhile, her business applies a universal wage, which is interesting. So let's get into this from BuzzFeed. Just means that instead of your boss making $24 million a year, which is the average for the top 350 firms in the US to pay their CEO in 2020, well, you make like 30K or whatever for the work in the same business. You take everybody's salary in the whole place, and you average them out amongst the number of workers you have. Boom, company has a universal wage. I do this in my business, and I'll show you how it works. Much of the profits her company makes are redistributed back to the workers. So we have one example of how she used it to buy her staff new cars. From Goalcast, after we netted a huge profit from a recent sale, we bought everyone who needed one a new car, paid off the remaining car loans for everybody else, she added. We also put an option for people who didn't drive, telling them, hey, if this changes in the future and you want to drive, we got you. So yeah, we do stuff like that and get as close to zero as possible. There's no profit left over, and we're distributing it all year long. Now, Jessica, this is really, it's nice to hear stories like this. I love her TikToks. It really fights against the narrative that companies push, particularly small businesses, that they just can't afford to pay their workers a living wage.
Yeah, that's the main thing here, right? Is they say this is going to destroy small businesses if we raise the minimum wage. And it's because all of these folks approach business with this precursor that you need to be profiting off of others' labor to the extreme. And let's also not forget that everyone talks about inflation being a huge problem in our economy. There's someone who's making a decision at every single firm that sells products, goods, or services. they're making a decision to raise prices, to increase prices. And so you can't squeeze out all of your consumers, which are also your workers. You can't have it both ways and say, I'm going to increase prices so that I profit higher than I ever have in the past, and also refuse to raise my workers' wages, because who's going to pay for the goods and services? The workers are the consumers in the economy. That's how divided our classes are. And so this is a perfect example of a small business. This isn't a large corporation paying their workers a fair cut of the revenue generated by their labor. This is how a business could ethically operate anywhere. This is not a unique circumstance. She's not operating in a special closed system. She's in the free market in the United States, in LA, which is not only a tough market to sell clothes, it's a tough market to pay workers a living wage in, and she's doing it. So if she can do it, this young girl, I'm sure many of the other older men who have studied finance or economics can run the numbers and figure out a way to do this as well. The problem is they're not willing to, not that it's not possible.
Well, Jessica, I think what you're asking of those older men in the industry is unfair. I mean, they have had to make sacrifices. They've had to cut back from 3 yachts to 2 yachts because of inflation.